The underworld of Terry Goodkind's books is much more kind of, multi-layered.
The underworld isn't exactly like a Christian hell. There isn't like heaven and hell. The good guys go here, the bad guys go there. It's more like the Greek underworld where everybody goes. And you're all in there together.
The underworld isn't necessarily all terrible. Like Dante's Inferno, there are different levels of it. But we wanted a very visceral representation that since we were going to open a tear in the veil and a crack into the underworld, and this was a terrible thing, and that the explosion of the boxes of Orden had kind of upset the balance of the underworld we wanted to show was the horrible place where you absolutely would not want to spend eternity.
We created our own mythology in which the creator is a woman and the keeper of the underworld is a man.
In the beginning, the keeper and the creator of all life were a couple. They loved each other and they created humans. They created life.
The keeper became jealous of the creator's love for her children. He wanted it all for himself, so he introduced death into the world.
He betrayed me. I wept. So profound was my grief that it took shape. The start of tears. I used it to banish the one I had loved, trapping him in the underworld for eternity.
Dark and roll, kneel before the keeper.
The keeper has magically reached out from the underworld and burnt his mark into Richard's flesh, which means every soul that Richard kills goes to hell. Quite a burden for a young hero like Richard.
So this is the mark of the keeper. This basically means you're dead. Death's coming to get you. Death's knocking on your door.
No, that's nice.
So, might as well be ready for it.
So we learned about the underworld in Wizard's First Rule through a description of the boundary, which was magic which brought the underworld onto Earth. But it was never described in any specific depth. So as filmmakers, we could take that essence of what Terry suggested in his books and kind of create our own specific visual world.
We had established early on a kind of a greenish, blackish kind of world. And I also wanted it to be like viscous and wet and disgusting.
And that's been our starting point for all our creatures and anything to do with the keeper. Dark and Roll, for instance, in our show when his spirit form appears on Earth, often he appears in green flame. There are no green flames in Terry's book, but we thought we needed very simple visual motifs to show that the underworld was hellish.
And very quickly, I knock out visuals. And those visuals, if you like, are our first pictorial look at. This is what we might be looking at. I look at, books, references and art, and some other pictorial references. And out of our noodlings, what idea can we try and get through and realise it practically?
Drago, my lord. You're alive? No. Neither are you.
We knew we needed a real practical set to shoot in so that we could, when we were doing close-ups of Dark and Raw or Richard or whoever was appearing in the underworld at a given moment, we had a set to shoot in so that every shot wasn't an expensive visual effects shot.
There are usually preliminary conversations between the writers about how they would like to visualize this, and then that gets translated down to script, and the script comes down to us at the production level, and we look at it and we start talking about what we think we would like it to be. Mark showed up at our first production meeting with a little model to explain conceptually what he would like the underworld to be and how he thought we should approach it. His intention may seem kind of funny here, but his intention was very clear, that what we would do was create a partial built environment in our largest stage that has a room for this that would be rocky, and have a flat area in the front here and be built up to rocks and be completely surrounded by a green screen or a blue screen, where we could later composite in, using visual effects, deeper backgrounds, higher roofs, the fires burning beyond, and we could also place hundreds and thousands of them in the background with the burning fires of hell.
So, you want to be a Baneling?
As a practical idea, it's worked for us because it allows us to make the underworld as large as we need it to be, which is where we see it in the episode 201, where Rolf first finds himself in the underworld. And it also allows us to go into a smaller area, and we can rebuild our stage rocks and use a smaller portion of green screen or no green screen at all.
As part of this season, we wanted to push the effects further than we had last season, and this is sort of permeated into the underworld. All the fire and all the thousands of wandering souls are all additional.
We did something which is a little risky, which is this idea of these writhing bodies. We had long discussions because we knew people were going to appear in the underworld and then leave the underworld, and what would they look like in the underworld? Would they show up in the underworld wearing the clothes that they wore? And Mark Beasley was very passionate about the fact that they should be naked, which I agreed with completely, but it presented production challenges.
We brought in groups of actors, models, dancers, people who could really move, and shot them against glue screen. And we can take 3 people and make it 6 and make it 9 and make it 12, and we can endlessly duplicate them to create a sea of writhing humanity in the underworld that supports the very large vision that Mark had.
On American ABC television, how do you have 20 naked people and not show them? So in a way that dictated how the lighting worked, and I figured well, the easiest way to keep bodies silhouette is to have a nice, strong, soft backlight so that on the camera side, you don't see any details.
Hell as an environment doesn't exist. It's all a combination of matte paintings and partial sets that are then extended by us to envelop the actors, as well as duplicating the small amount of dancers that we have into, I think in our biggest shot we've got about the equivalent of 10,000 people visible at one time. And since it started with 16 dancers, I thought that was, pretty good.
The kind of things that I think people have associated with feature films, from time to time we're actually able to achieve with Legend of the Secret. And I think it adds to the scope and the entertainment value of the show.
I think for something that's hard to represent, Hell, I think, we did a pretty decent job and made it recognizable, but hopefully original enough that it doesn't feel like a cliched version of Hell, I hope.